Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Saltwater for the Soul. This is a really special episode tonight. Saltwater for the Soul is all about taking a little look at some wounds that might need some flushing. And sometimes it might sting a little to put some salt water into a wound, but there's often great reward on the other side of it. And sometimes it's nice to kind of take a little look. And there's often a lot of, like I said before, reward. So I'm really excited tonight to talk to two amazing souls who have certainly been through a lot. Tonight's episode is called Saltwater for the Soul, Women of War. And we are so honored to be holding space with Jennifer and Adrian, who are magnificent women and souls and also veterans of our country. Thank you, ladies, for being here, and thank you for your service. I am so honored to have this discussion. Jennifer, how are you today?
Hi. Good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you in sending the invite. I'm excited.
Absolutely. How are you, Adrian?
I'm good, Mandee. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I'm honored. I'm truly honored. Tonight we're going to be talking about some things that, we'll put it out there in the beginning, could have some trigger warnings. We're going to be talking about some of this tough stuff and some heartfelt stuff, as well as some good stuff, because these two souls didn't become as magnificent as they are without going through some transmutation, which, can involve some pressure, and that's what makes diamonds a lot of the time. But so everybody has been and is on their own secret, amazing healing journey. We may talk about some things that trigger you. We invite triggers often to be kind of opportunities to heal and be a little curious and look around them, whether they're mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional. So we're going to have a really beautiful discussion tonight. And if at any point, it gets uncomfortable, we're sending the love and we're holding the space. And we thank Jennifer and Adrian for being so kind and offering to share parts of their stories with us. So my first question is, I'm going to kind of ask each of you to go, but if you could tell us just a little bit about yourself and your service in the military. Adrian, do you want to go first?
Sure. It's hard for me to keep up with my timeline, but basically it goes like this. I graduated high school at 17. I joined the military, had to have my parents sign me in. And then very quickly after 9/11 happened, and I went to basic training, was told right away in basic training I'd be going to war. And that's exactly what happened. After I graduated basic, went to Fort Benning, Georgia, where I was stationed. Trained for about a year there, and then ended up deploying to Iraq from 2004 to 2005, my first time. And then I came back and then deployed from 2007 to 8. So 2 times in Iraq and about 9 years total in the Army as military police.
Wow. Thank you so much for your service and for sharing with us. Jennifer, would you like to introduce yourself and give us a brief summary?
Sure. My timeline's a bit off too. Must be a military thing. Okay. I was a teen mom. I got pregnant at 17, had my first son at 18, and joined the military shortly after. I was in from 2001 to 2006 as a hospital corpsman. I remained stateside. I actually was in the Great Lakes area my entire 5 years. So, yeah. So I got to see and do a lot on that aspect, the recruit training command, and how the entire medical process worked, having a hospital on base and things like that. So it was really cool. I got to do a lot of classes as well and do a lot of higher learning type of things. So it was really good.
That is cool. What about that did you enjoy? What type of things came in that stuck with you?
Everything. My medical training is one thing that will stick with me forever. It's so fast paced, but it's all hands on. So it's see one, do one, teach one. You are constantly, moving and grooving. You have visuals and then you have text and all that. So you build this camaraderie. So because I was in one place the entire time, I got to know all of these amazing doctors and, higher chain of command. And I was heard and seen in a lot of ways, not so much in others, but I learned a lot about camaraderie and seeing people come and go and being able to stay in contact and things like that. So I learned a lot about family in a sense.
Well, I love that word, camaraderie. That's certainly a word that, is rising, I think, in a lot of people. And we all like to talk about, the spirit side of things and the magic and the woo-woo and all of that here on this network, on Sea Goddess Healing Arts. What does camaraderie mean to you? What does that feel like? And what would you like, I don't want to go too far in that, but what does that feel like for you?
You never leave a man behind, ever. Your family, you're a unit, you work together, you come together, you leave together. And that's one thing that I teach my kids. I have 4 kids, 22 down to 3. And that's one thing that I instill in them is to never leave a man behind.
I love that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Adrian, what were a positive thing, or what do you got? Go ahead. What was your comment?
I'm thinking on that word camaraderie and what that would mean to me on my military journey. And it just, honestly, it kind of saddens me that for me, it felt, not with everyone, but with most people, that was fake. It was fake. I'm just being real. It was fake because yes, of course, we had each other's back when it came to actually fighting our enemy, right? But at the same time, as soon as the enemy was gone, in my eyes, I became the target sometimes for a lot of men that were over there, and even some women. It was very hard for me to be there fighting an enemy, a domestic, a foreign enemy and a domestic enemy, because I constantly had to be watching my back. So when you say you felt that camaraderie, I love that for you, but I did not have that.
Yeah, I think everybody's military experience is different, especially when you're stateside and when you're overseas. When you're overseas, you have to watch your 6 at all times. Especially being a woman and a female in a country where women aren't respected. So not only do you have to watch that, but any female that has been in the military, I don't care what branch, has experienced sexual harassment or sexual assault at some point or time, because that's just the way that things are in the military. They preach no fraternization, no harassment, but it's the number one problem. So I think being in the field, it's a much different situation than what I experienced. Like I said, I got that long-term type of commitment for doctors that were, there for a long time, or people that were stationed at a long time. I made good connections in that sense, but it was a coming and going type of thing. So I didn't experience, what you experienced. And I can only imagine having to deal with the normal, regular sexual harassment and having to have bullets flying behind my head and having to make sure and protect everyone around me. I couldn't imagine.
And not only that, when we would come back to our base camp or whatever, and I would finally take all my gear off and finally feel okay, I have a couple hours of peace. And then I would think okay, I need to go to the bathroom. Then right away, my guard would come back up, because sometimes on my way to the bathroom, I'd be, slapped on the butt and asked to give someone a blowjob. It's just it was a constant everyday harassment. And who am I going to talk to? Who could I tell? Most of the time it was my, my team leader or my superior. So it was I was literally stuck.
Yeah. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Me too. I'm grateful you're sharing. And this is such a perfect example of the type of energy we want to get into tonight, because of why we even started with the word trigger, because there's such polar experiences, of course, within the military, but also within so many other, as we see it coming down, workplaces and schools and all kinds of situations, and everybody is having different experiences. And it's so important that we talk about and we share the truth of each of our own experiences and what really happened. And I think that's something I've been privileged to work with many veterans, and so many, sign up, and both of you can share your truth with this, but sign up thinking they truly are going to be loved and held and protected and supported, and they're going to have, brothers and sisters that truly have their back. And a lot of the trauma I work with clients on helping them to heal for themselves has to do with sexual trauma, especially in the military, and harassment, as well as a lot of emotional stuff and bullying and things like that, because it's such a, we're all broken people raising broken people, and everybody's so wounded. And, you're creating this huge organization within the military, and it's can be really good with some things and not so good with other things. And I think it's really nice that we can have this conversation to take a look at that and a deeper look. Jennifer, go ahead. No, don't. Go ahead.
For me, the main thing that I want to use my voice for is to let the younger generation know the truth, because if I was told this ahead of time, it would have totally changed the direction of my life. So if I could just make someone aware of a possibility that could happen, that's all I want to do, so.
We appreciate that.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about your experience, Adrian, or maybe just some things that, just what you said, if you were to, what would you want to tell the young people who are considering it now?
I would just say speak up. No matter what, speak up, because I just held it in for so long. And the thing is I'm not claiming to be an angel, right? Like, I definitely made mistakes, and I've put myself in some situations that were sketchy that I probably shouldn't have, but we all make mistakes. But at the same time, there was a lot of things going on that shouldn't have been going on. And I just always kept quiet and kept it to myself. And of course, when you come home, you're just so happy to be home and be surrounded by people who do love you and care for you, that I never wanted to bring any of that up ever again. But there came a point in my life where I was slowly losing who I was, because of these secrets that I was keeping. And I finally just got up to a point in my life where I was like, it's either speak up and speak out, or I'm going to take my life. And I thankfully had a great support system around me, and I got into a treatment facility, and it wasn't the best thing for me there, but it gave me that catapult to find myself again and to start that healing journey. So I'm just, I just want the truth to be out there for this younger generation, so they don't have to continue to go through what we went through.
Thank you for sharing that. It's very powerful. Jennifer, what would you say to the younger generations joining in?
Well, I'd like to touch back on, like the sexual harassment and military sexual trauma. I do think it is imperative to warn women in a sense. There are some aspects of the military that I don't believe women should be in because of, military sexual trauma and such. I don't think it's, safe for women in certain areas of the military. The problem, though, is that, like you said, we have this generation that has no tools to fix their own trauma. It's a problem within the military, and it needs to be fixed within the military. It took me 15 years to claim my PTSD, to even bring it up to the VA. My doctors knew. I touched here and there, but like you, Adrian, I didn't want to talk about it. I was home, things were done, life was okay. You know, I was dealing with it. But like you, then I wanted to heal. But it had to be on my time. I think that it needs to start within the ranks. It needs to start within the military, because when you have an officer that has a drinking problem, that, you know, everyone is aware that has a drinking problem, how can they properly run a chain of command? They can't. So again, speaking up, it needs to happen while on duty, while you're active duty. The things that are unacceptable today, they need to be unacceptable today, and they need to be held accountable. Fear is the number one thing that keeps people from opening their mouths. They are afraid. Even with VA claims, they don't want to, you know, give this power away, but they also don't want to bring back. They don't want to have to face those things, because we've all faced those things on our own terms, and we're, you know, content and to an extent of where we're at. But change needs to happen from inside, and I think that relies on our older female active duty and veterans. They need to speak out, the ones that came before us, because it's just going to be a vicious cycle that keeps going on and on. The women within the military structure, within our government even, they need to speak up, and they need to, you know, not be afraid of, you know, using their voice, because then it's just going to continue. It's going to continue to trickle down, and no matter what we do, it's not going to make a difference, because if there's an entire generation of women that are allowing it to happen, that are finding it acceptable because it's giving them a stature or a place somewhere, they're just as bad as the abuser or the accuser, whatever, you know, you want to call it.
Totally agree.
So,
What were you going to add, Adrian?
I was just thinking of also the VA needs to come up with a better plan to help, especially, you know, and I know that women aren't the only ones that experience military sexual trauma. There are plenty of males too. And when we finally do get up that courage to go for help, and the VA slams you in a room with like padded walls, you know, pointing fingers at you, saying like you're the crazy one because you had trauma happen to you, that's not okay. It's really not okay.
Another thing that I have, well, another issue I have with the Veterans Affairs is, I'm not sure, you know, which region you go to. I go to the Philadelphia VA Medical Center, and it is primarily males, like the military is. And unfortunately, back in 2014, I had to walk away from the VA healthcare system because of not the treatment per se of, you know, the doctors or the staff at the VA hospital, but the treatment from the male veterans. Walking in there, hey, you got a, you know, a nice butt, or, you know, this, that, or the other. It's like they're catcalling. It's like as you go in and as you go out, and it gets to a certain point where it doesn't even matter if you say something. They laugh. They laugh. Why? Because they've been allowed to do it their entire lives. They have that military background. Oh, I can say whatever to her. She, you know, who cares? You know, so it became an extremely toxic environment for me. It was a huge trigger, one that caused so many trigger responses that it was, you know, making me sick, and I had to walk away. So while I think the VAs are making a lot of strides, you know, especially with all the stuff in the news about them not taking care of us the way that they should be, there's more changes that can be made. And when you have ex-female officers who are now in director positions who know what's going on and don't do anything about it, they're just as bad as the people that gave us the trauma. So I think for now, we just have to talk about it like we're doing here. And like Adrian said, let the younger generations and the older generations know. And the more people that use their voice and the more people that bring awareness to these situations, it's going to start coming out. And then that means it's going to start to stop. So
that's just it. And, you know, I always, the healer within me, you know, the space holder always says, okay, what's happening that's making everyone so afraid to speak the truth? What's happening? You know, what are the consequences? And so I'd like to ask both of you, and this can, you know, kind of be a discussion, but like, what happened when you both decided, okay, I need help. I want some help. I want some support. Would love to ask you both, what that experience was like when you went in to the VA or when you tried to sign up for support and help. And then what you'd like to see for support and help if there wasn't, if a need wasn't being met during that experience. So Jennifer, you mentioned that you wanted to bring up a little bit about, other types of military trauma and non-combat military trauma, and you've had your own traumatic experiences and have gone to get help. So would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So my stateside trauma, as I, call it, I was active duty military and I was a mom, and I was also married, and I had to be that stellar sailor while I was getting, the crap kicked out of me at home every day. It was part of the reason why I signed up for as many classes as I could do. My kids were safe and whatnot, but I didn't want to be at home. My chain of command knew what was going on. I was the typical lifetime story of, how'd you get that bruise? Oh, I bumped into the cabinet or I fell down the steps. And it got to a point where I wasn't able to go into duty because he wouldn't show up at night, and it just got really, really bad. And I didn't have the support that I needed. Nobody knew how to deal with a female, sailor that was dealing with domestic violence at home. My only options were to get sent onto a ship or to get kicked out, and neither one of those were, sufficient for me. So I had to fight to stay in, at least to my EAOS. And then the harassment started. I got accused, in my white uniform, I got accused of having tattoos on my bottom and, the typical male bravado of, getting hit on. And, within the military, there's lots of drinkers. So, it's not that we put ourselves in situations we feel that we're supposed to be safe with this group of people, but we're not, because these people have trauma too. And then, alcohol and, whatever gets involved, and it creates a not so healthy environment. But they don't know how to handle that in the military. They don't know how to handle people that are going through, PTSD from coming back from Iraq. They don't know how to deal with people that are having marital issues or, base housing. I'm not sure, Adrian, if you ever got to live in base housing, but that's not a healthy environment either. Like you said, a lot of things are fake. So, you can imagine the things that go on behind closed doors, and all these people think, oh no, not my military. Well, I hate to break it to you, but everything you have out here in the world, it's the same in the military. It's just a little more, it's hidden. It's not laid out on the table on a pretty, placemat for you. But I had a lot of people that knew what was going on in my home and did nothing to help me. And when I asked for help, that was when the harassment started. So for the last 15 years, I refused to ask for help, because if the people that were supposed to help me and supposed to protect me and were supposed to, if God forbid anything happens, we're going to go down in this ship together, they're the very people that hurt me. So I had a lot of trauma for a very long time. I trusted in the VA healthcare system. And at one point I was on like 18 meds a day because, I had anxiety, and then the anxiety medication gave me diarrhea. So, I had to take a pill for that. And then I got migraines for this and that and the other. It's like a pill factory over there. They don't try to fix the problem. They address the symptoms. That's all they care about. So my story is much different than Adrian's, but I got to see a much dirtier side, as on the home front, because they don't talk about those things. There's they don't have those problems. They do have those problems, and there is no safe place for women, whether they're active duty or even the spouse of an active duty. Where do they go when there is violence in the home? You call base police. I mean, my situation, my bank account was emptied, my car was stolen, there was jail time. I had to go to the very hospital that I worked at and had to have one of my higher ups measure bite marks and bruises that were put on my body. And then it spread throughout the entire hospital because, as Adrian said, there are a lot of fake people. They're not your friends. They want something to talk about. So it just continued, this cycle of abuse for years until I got to my EAOS. I've healed on and off over the years, but it wasn't until the last couple years that I had a really bad health scare that I realized that if something happens to me, my kids have nobody. So after 15 years, I claimed my PTSD. I used my voice and I wasn't afraid to do it. And like Adrian, I make it known that the VA in Philadelphia is not a healthy place for females, and there's much more that they can do. And I try to bring awareness to domestic violence in the military and other types of trauma, because I feel like within the veteran community, the active duty community, and even, you know, the civilian community, if you come home with all your limbs, you shouldn't be crying or bitching about anything. Well, that's not how it happens. There are women that are raped over in Afghanistan. There are women that are raped right here in your backyard, and nobody's doing a damn thing about it. That's why Adrian and I are here, because we want to do something about it. And the only way we can do that is if we tell our stories and we encourage other women to do the same. And even men, like Adrian said, there's men that have to endure sexual harassment as well. It's, I guess you could say it's like kind of like locker room banter, but like all the time. Is that how you would describe it, Adrian?
Yes, 24/7. Like it never ends.
And then you find yourself talking like that, because it's like it's put in you and you're just like, oh, haha, you know, you chuckle it off or you walk away and you're like, whatever, you know. And then at nighttime when you try to lay down, you're just like, what the hell am I doing?
I'd argue you have to adopt that a little bit to survive at that point, just like a wounded child.
Yes, very much so. You definitely have to adapt. You know, there was times where I had to smile in a guy's face that like stuck his dick in my mouth the night before. You know what I mean? Because it's horrible. You know, like I was literally in a porta potty and he kicks the door down with a gun to my head and like forced me, you know, and it's like, what am I supposed to do? I'm in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere. He's my superior. What am I going to do? You know, and I just held it in for so long. And then finally, when the Me Too movement was coming out and it was everywhere, it just kept like triggering me. And finally, one night I was like, okay, I have to tell my story. And I didn't want to have to go to like my parents individually. I knew it was going to crush my family. So I just made like a Facebook video. I didn't even speak. I just wrote it down on a piece of paper and just held it and made it like open, you know, on Facebook for everyone to see. And then called, you know, for help. I called the VA, I called my caseworker and I said, listen, you know, I need help and I need it now. And I'm having like a mental breakdown. And literally it took, I think 3 weeks to get me into the women's facility at, it was in Lyons. And as soon as I get there, they're treating me like I am a criminal. Like they were searching through all my bags. They're like, oh, you can't have this, you can't have that. And I'm thinking to myself, what did I do? I didn't do anything. I'm here for help. And right away, they put me in this room with this other woman and they're telling me she's on suicide watch. And then I'm hearing like banging in the other room. These two girls were fighting in the next room over to me. And like, it was just very not healing at
like
all.
not healing.
No, like, no.
Oh gosh, I'm just holding you in such love.
Yeah.
And
Me too.
so
And I'm
proud that you experienced that. And I'm grateful you're being vulnerable. I'm grateful you're shining a light on it. And you know, we're really shining a light on where we need to fill in some serious gaps when it comes to the therapeutic process.
yeah.
Very much so. Very much so. And I ended up, it took everything in me to stay there for 2 weeks. I was supposed to be there for at least a month. And so I was there for 2 weeks without even being seen by the psychiatrist. So every day it was just like I had to wake up, go to like, they had like group meetings and stuff like that. But like, as far as being seen one-on-one, that didn't even happen for me for 2 weeks. And I'm thinking to myself, what is happening? I want to talk, I need to talk to someone. That's why I'm here. And I just kept being blown off and blown off. And then finally, one of the doctors ended up like smushing me in my face. So I was like, oh no, I'm out of here. So I ended up calling a friend. She drove like 3 hours to come pick me up. And I was like, this is not what I need to heal. And that shouldn't be healing for anybody. I don't care what you've been through. That was like, I felt like I was in prison. It was horrible.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. I think the mental health, that's what they call it. It's a mental health clinic. So when you have to go to, a counselor or a therapist or anything that has to deal with, your emotions, it's considered mental health. And the treatment there is just, it's poor. The appointment times, they're like, what, 10-15 minutes. So there's no time to talk to somebody and see how somebody is. It's, do you need any meds? How are, this, that, and the other. They're not fixing the problem. How hard is it for you to get an appointment now? Even being a veteran now, how hard is it for you to get an appointment to see a counselor or a therapist to actually have a conversation and talk about your feelings?
Very hard. And very hard. And to find a good one, like, since I've been at the VA, I've probably had 20 different psychiatrists, not even joking.
I'm blessed at the Philadelphia VA. I've had the same one since '06. However, dental, you got to wait 6 to 8 months for appointment. Optometry is the same thing. They're letting people's teeth rot out of their face because you can't get in within a timely manner. There's people that are not able to see because they can't get into optometry. It's their whole system is just jacked and they need to do something. Adrian and I, we're a different type of veteran. We are not the Vietnam veteran era. We're not the Agent Orange era. We want the problems fixed. We don't want the symptoms taken care of. We want you to fix the problems, and not with your pills or your pharmaceutical, friends. Give us acupuncture and other holistic measures that we can properly heal, that we're not going to pass down generational trauma to our children. Or, unfortunately, one of the side effects with PTSD is we tend to hurt the people that we love the most. I'm sure Adrian has, pushed people out of her life. It seems like it's a commonality with PTSD. And it's because we don't have the tools. We're not given them. We have to beg or, pay out of pocket or, try and find other means of healthcare when we should have those things on the ready. We earned them. We deserve them.
100%.
I agree. So let's talk about that part a little bit. What are some things, whether it was with the VA or whoever, or within yourself, what are some things that started fostering healing both of these traumas within you both? Adrian, you want to go first?
So the main thing for me, I feel, was just finally letting it out. This is what I tell a lot of my clients now, is that we have to speak up for ourselves in every single moment. No matter what is going on around you, you have to speak up and speak out. And like I said before, I'm honestly not doing it for myself anymore. I'm doing it for those that come after me, because I do not want to see anyone suffer the way that I've suffered. And it's just, so just speaking was huge for me. And then when I finally did break out of the facility and come home, I was like, that's it. I am not going to let anybody else keep holding me down. I'm going to figure this out. And I miraculously came across, sound bowl healing meditation, and I just was drawn to that. And that literally, just learning about my body and my energy centers. I didn't know anything about that. And just by holding those traumas in your energy, you're blocking your energy. I was like gaining weight like crazy. I had no light in my face. I was just slowly withering away of who I was because I didn't want to speak up. And, we are energy. And when we have stagnant energy in us, that's when our energy level goes down. My energy level was way down. And now that I have let it out, I feel better. And yeah, I mean, it's a daily struggle, but it's much better now.
And you empowered yourself, and you were the one who chose. I think that's the most dynamic, all of us, no matter what kind of traumas or dramas or ancestral wounds we're all healing, it gets to a point where all of us, we're like, okay, we're sick of this shit. We're sick of our own shit. And regardless of what everyone else is saying around us, even if they have authority over us, we're going to take control in some way or another. And that's where, true warrior spirit training comes in. And I'm bowing to you for listening to that stirring in your soul and being brave enough to do it, because there was that choice of letting that, that be the last experience that pushes you over the edge and breaks you, or, digging even deeper and saying, oh, wait a minute. And no. And that's what you did. And slowly but surely, you have come to find your balance again.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. And what about you, Jennifer? So yeah, what happened once you went to get some help, and what are some things that have steered you on your healing journey?
Well, I had to learn the hard way, unfortunately, with trusting my VA doctors. But again, in 2014, I became my own advocate, kind of along the lines that Adrian said. It wasn't working. It wasn't working. I'd tried it for too long. I had had enough. I was tired of being sick. There was times where I didn't want to brush my teeth, where I didn't want to get out of bed, where I didn't even want to take a shower, and I didn't care. And that was not me. That was not who I am. And unfortunately, I had to hit rock bottom in a sense, in a mental aspect to really make the changes that I wanted to make. And I had to take charge of my healthcare. That was the first and foremost. And like Adrian, I recently got into the sound bowls, and I just love it. The vibrations. It's a way to just get that stagnant energy out, and it makes all that pain just go away. When you hold things in, you can't expect change. It's not going to happen. You're going to get sick. Your health is going to decline. You're going to have umpteen medical problems, and you're going to be like, what is going on? Well, what's going on is, like Adrian said, you're harboring all of that stuff, and it is making you physically sick. You have to, defecate and urinate, get the waste out of your body. It's the same sense. You have to get that energy out. You have to get that negative out. Changing a thought. And I'll tell you this, my lovely friend Mandee, this woman, changing my thoughts is what did it for me. Mandee recommended this book to me, and I have found the most help in changing my thoughts, because a lot of my triggers of, my military trauma, military sexual trauma, I see in my trauma responses. So if I'm able to change my thoughts and how I feel about going to the VA medical center or dealing with veterans or active duty or, things that trigger me, I'm going to be okay. So changing thoughts and just, loving me and using my voice like we all have been saying to do.
Easier said than done, but that's the work. It's like how we show up. Like life is going to happen no matter what. And, in our magical spiritual world, everyone's trying to get to this place of enlightenment, and I'm totally healed, and that's
Never happened.
wonderful. And I'm going to attract all the things. Like, you might have the partner and the money and the body and all the things. Life's still going to happen. There's still going to be death and grief and tragedy. And it's how we respond to it. It's how we let it impact our self-value and our self-worth. One of the longest lasting impacts of PTSD is really how much it chips away at your soul and your self-worth and who you are, and the conversations you have with yourself in your own head, which the book that Jennifer referenced is Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life It was written in 1985. She's like the fairy godmother of positive affirmations. And she's been through it. She's been raped and been through a lot and had to heal her own stage 4 cancer in like the 1950s. Like she's like amazing, maybe 60s. But it really helps you to bring your power back to yourself, especially in those moments where, like Adrian was describing, you know, being completely alone in a foreign country, like in the middle of the desert with a gun to your head. Like, what are you going to do? And all you have is yourself in those moments. And all you have, you know, and we do talk a lot about with traumas sometimes, your soul will leave a little bit during certain traumas sometimes and then come back in depending on what happens. And if you survive it, you know, you are meant to, and there's a sacredness to it as well. And it doesn't mean it was okay by any means whatsoever, but it does not mean that you deserved it and that you weren't worthy or that you attracted that to yourself. It's all about how you handle it afterwards and how, you know, you meet yourself with grace, because odds are we're going to be in a broken place. Hello. We're going to be in a broken place for a while, and it's going to take us a little while to find the pieces of ourselves and bring those back. But wanting to do that, that's the magic. And both of you being able to walk in and say, okay, the help I needed did not happen. I feel rejected on a lot of levels. However, I still want to help this. I still want to fix this. There's still women who are going to come after me, and I know that we can do better. And when we know better, we do better. And I just admire both of you for wanting to do that and for being brave enough to take a hard look. And then also being brave enough to kind of raise your hand and wave your flag and say, hey, you're not alone over here. We've all got our own bits and pieces of traumas and dramas, but we're working on it and we're figuring it out together. It's absolutely incredible. So are both of you, so you're both still involved with the VA a little bit though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, because I always like to do, you know, goods and bads. So what are some things that keep you going right now or keep you a little bit connected? What are some things that are working for you with that right now? We'll start with you, Jennifer.
I have a couple really good doctors. With the bad comes good too. It's, you know, it's a balance of everything. So I have been blessed that I do have a couple really good providers, but I also feel confident enough to use my voice that if I'm not getting the care I want, deserve, or need, I have no problem asking for it. Would I have done that, you know, back before 2014? Probably not, but they're learning as well, because now that I'm gaining tools, I'm able to give them tools, and they're like, oh, wait, wow, real, you know, they don't have these thoughts. They don't have the tools that we've worked really, really hard to get. So we can plant little seeds, and that's what I try doing over there. So, yeah, so the good doctors, the good positive healthcare, because here's the thing. While there's bad, there is a lot of good, and we have a lot of benefits that we're entitled to. There should not be any homeless veterans. There should not be any veterans without, you know, medical care. There are a lot of good resources that that veterans have at their disposal. They just don't know about them. So again, the voice. If we use the voice and we, you know, see one, do one, teach one, we pass information along. We're helping people as we go. So.
And that time thing, you know, like I did social work for a long time in Colorado, and I helped, I worked for like a agency that did housing, and I was privileged to work with a group of men who were veterans who had been like chronically homeless for 20 plus years, leasing up into their first apartments. And it was really cool. I got to work on a special grant. And even then, it was still like 6 to 8 months to get the funding, to get everything we needed, of me being like, sorry, didn't come through today. Still got to sleep on the streets again tonight. And I'm like, why is this so broken? Why is this happening this way? And when I worked for that agency, I was really able to see all the gaps, particularly within government. And, you know, military is a huge branch of that. And if there's, you know, all of these disconnects going on, of course, it's going to trickle down. And, you know, I think we need to maybe build it from the bottom up this time, or look at it in a different way, because like, enough.
It's not working.
We're creating a bigger problem at this point. Same thing with the teeth. I remember just having clients, once I got them leased up, then getting them hooked into medical care and all of that, months and months and months before they could get an appointment for anything. And, you know, it's like that with a lot of healthcare these days.
Yeah.
A lot
and
of
if you don't know I apologize. I didn't mean to talk
No,
over you,
you're great.
but if you don't know how to navigate the VA health, listen, there is a way to navigate that system if you don't know how to do it. And if you haven't been in the system for at least about 6 to 10 years, you probably don't know how, but there's a way that you have to navigate. And so many don't know, and it's a shame. Like you said, the whole system, knock it down, build it back up, and let people that are from a younger generation of veterans. Here's the thing. How can a doctor fresh out of the University of Pennsylvania, which is a wonderful school, but that has no experience with veterans, that doesn't and can't relate to me, how can that be my provider? There are a lot of things that need to happen within the VA healthcare system. And like you said, maybe from the bottom up this time, because what they're doing, it works in some ways, but it's not working well enough. And we are creating more problems because we still have veterans that are at risk for homelessness, and veterans that, the 22 a day and everything. So we have to do better.
And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that in order, like Adrian started to say, in order to really start the healing process, the best thing is to be able to be seen and heard. And if you finally get the guts up, because it takes a lot of strength and courage to say, okay, especially if you're someone who's retired military, like it takes a lot to say, I need help. I'm broken. This isn't working. And then, you get all the strength and courage to go and do that. And then you get rejected. And they're like, oh, well, maybe we'll talk about it in a few months. And that in itself is traumatizing and a huge mind fuck for people.
Yeah. Especially people who are ready, like right then and there. You had to wait 2 weeks. That was probably one of the hardest things you ever had to do. And you had to wait 2 weeks to see a doctor. What about the people that don't have those type of facilities at their disposal? You know what I mean?
And that's why we have 22 a day. It's not okay.
No.
I don't find it fair that we have to literally fight for our lives for years and years and years in the military. And then when we finally come back, we have to fight for our health care.
Yeah.
That is not okay.
No.
Not okay at all. Well, again, on a positive, Adrian and Jennifer, myself, Ursula Duffy of Sea Goddess Healing Arts, and some other wonderful collaborators have been discussing and creating and co-creating plans for retreats. And we're hoping to host several this summer. They might be a day retreat or sleepovers. We're not quite sure yet, but certainly Women of War. And that's for any woman who's been impacted by war, whether you're a veteran, active duty, someone who loved a veteran, someone who is just at war with herself, or whatever it is, that energy of war. We're looking to help bring some support and some peace and some light and some resources to that. And so Adrian and Jennifer and I will be continuing to kind of co-create. And if you're listening to this episode and you just need some support and you're saying, hey, I saw that, I was really inspired. That actually happened. Jennifer watched Token to Talk with Adrian. That's one of our other medicines we support is cannabis, because we talk all the time about how it's very, easy to drink alcohol and openly acceptable in the military, but it's not okay to use cannabis as a tool for healing. And it's been
that needs to change too. Everything needs to change.
Yeah.
Even at like the VFW or the American Legion, it's just that's what people do there, and that's and we need to bring healing everywhere.
Well, like Mandee said, Mandee and Adrian did a show that was just, it touched my heart, my soul, and everything. And Adrian was the reason that I claimed my PTSD after 15 years. And it was not easy, and it's not going to be easy. And I don't think anybody should ever think that it's going to be easy, because it's not, but it is doable, and it is possible with the right type of people, the right type of support, and good soul sisters, man. Having you guys is made a huge impact on my life, and having healthy friends is more than I could ask for. But yes, Adrian, you using your voice was the reason that I was able to use my voice. So I am forever grateful for you telling your story. Thank you.
It's very moving. And that's just it. When it lights fire, when we speak our truths, it helps light fire in others. And it really does. Often being a little bit vulnerable fosters healing. So thank you, Adrian, for speaking your truth. And here's a perfect full circle moment of the impact that can have.
That's all I want. That's all that I do this for.
Well, you're doing it.
Thank you.
You did it, and you're continuing to do it. And that's just it. So here's the other thing. I'm gonna some more positives. In my life, I'm an ascension guide, so I get to help souls along their journey. And sometimes we look at the traumas and dramas and take a look at that in order to put a little salt water in, give it a little flush, help to freshen up the energy and change our patterns. But I've been blessed to work with a lot of veterans, and I love it. And, there's such positive, like, yes, there can be certainly some negative things that happened after all of our traumas and wounding, but there are some amazing, personalities and skills and traits and devotion that really come out of people who truly, truly signed up because they love themselves and their country and they want to make this world a better place. And there are so many incredible souls out there, particularly veterans, who want to show up and do this work and have just been missing, the littlest piece. Like for me and Jennifer, like that Louise Hay book, like I'd been missing that my whole life. I'm like, somebody gave me this when I was 12, like, oh my God, life would have been different. But I trust in the divine timing that I wasn't meant to access that knowledge until that part of my life. And so that happens a lot in a lot of ways with all of us when we share that story. It was really cool. Another friend of mine, hopefully he tunes into this, reached out to me, went to high school together, and he's a veteran, and he's been working really hard and sober for a long time. And he's like, yeah, oh, do you guys do any of those? Because I was telling him about my business a little bit. He goes, do you guys do any of those singing bowls? And I was like, yes. And I'm just fascinated by the correlation, because the three of you, and I've heard it from him and a few other people, the correlation between veterans and the healing frequencies of the singing bowls is fascinating. And I wonder if it has to do with a little bit of like, some of that war trauma of like the gunfire and things like that, or what it is. But there's certain notes that are bringing such healing and peace to so many vessels right now. And I want to just give that a little extra shout out, because you're both onto something with that.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do feel like it has a lot to do with the noise factor, especially for me, because, a huge trigger for me is like fireworks or any loud, sudden noise. I'm always like wanting to duck under the table or something. But I think just hearing that peace, for me, it's peace, it brings peace to my soul, and I'm sure it does others too. So
Definitely.
For me, it helps me calm the brain down. My brain is just moving and moving and moving. I'm able to focus on the sound and I'm able to feel the vibration. So it's got all these senses going. So it definitely is just a beautiful thing. I would highly recommend it to everybody. I'm actually taking a class right now so I can, home in and get my skills going. But I would highly recommend it for people that have PTSD and things like that. It's a way to just kind of relax the body and the mind all at once. And you got to experience it in order to really appreciate it, because over the computer or whatnot, it doesn't do it justice. When you're like in the room, it's a good deal.
So cool. Ladies, before we wrap our show up tonight, are there any other thoughts on your heart or mind that you're wanting to share tonight? Jennifer?
I don't think so. I would love to talk about some more things. Maybe we could, do a part 2 or whatnot, because I think if we dive deeper into how it works and how it functions within the military, maybe we can give some younger generation females some advice on how to approach, the higher ups and, and things like that. We've been there and we've done that. So if we can help give them a little bit of navigation and tools, maybe we can help people even more. So
I love that. It's a beautiful intention. Adrian, anything on your heart or mind you wish to share in closing tonight?
I just 100% agree with Jen. We have to do better for this next generation. Our military is amazing. The people in our military, 99.9% of them have great intentions. And we can't allow this, 1% to keep bullying. I look at them as bullies, and it's not okay. And we need to speak up and speak out. And if I could say to anyone who's in the military right now, speak up, speak your truth, and do it unapologetically.
Thank you. There's just a lot of energy going around that says there's never been a safer time for us to speak our truths. And, though it can be really scary, depending on what kind of situation we're in, it's also an opportunity to really trust, and to trust that speaking our truths is going to help us to not create, more trauma and drama, more resentment, more fear within our own vessels. And if you can't do that in the position you're at right now, at least try to write it down. I'm a big fan of at least writing it out and maybe burning it after, so it's getting released or seen or heard or witnessed, at least by your higher self and your angels, if that's the only safe place at this time. So it's just such potent medicine. And I'm really glad you brought that up, Adrian. Thank you both so much. I'm giving you the biggest energetic hug ever. I'm so appreciative. I'm so grateful to any of our anybody who's followed along this long and made it to the end of the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are Sea Goddess Healing Arts. We've got a network on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and search us, you'll find all of our shows, including this one. We've got a website, seagoddesshealingarts.com. And in our more soon to come area is where you will most likely find some events coming up to support veterans with Jennifer and with Adrian. And once that's out there, we will certainly pass it along. But I'm so grateful. I'm so glad that you both held the space. Thank you for sharing some very vulnerable and very hard topics. And I definitely love the idea of going deeper. And we can definitely have some more shows about this and see what it is, we can offer in order to help shift the energy just a little bit. And with that note too, I do give a lot of gratitude to those who came before us, because it hasn't been safe. It hasn't been safe for them to talk about it. They weren't able to. My grandfather was a Korea vet, and he was the commander of our VFW, and he had a real rough time, and they didn't talk about anything. And I have, a cousin who went to Vietnam, doesn't talk about it. So many different people, can't even start the conversation. So the fact that our generation is choosing to do that, I think, is so brave and creating ripples for those who come after us. And I have faith. Yeah, it's a broken system, but I think that we can fix it little by little.
I bet if you ask any female veterans that, have been in our situation, if I could exclude that one thing, I would do it all over again. I would do it. I loved it. I was good at my job, and I'm proud of where I come from. I'm proud of my country. If the system wasn't so broken and it was what they say it is, heck yeah, I'd do it all over again. And then I'd do it for 20 years. But now you couldn't pay me to do it. But if there are any females or even males that are watching that are not in a good place, feel free to reach out to any of us, please, because that's what we're here for. You're not alone. Don't sit and wait it out. Don't not talk or, hold it in. You have people that are ready to hear and ready to listen and who will understand. So don't suffer at your own hand, because we're here to help. So
we'd be honored to. Thank you both so much. Thank you to our listeners. We appreciate you, and we are sending all the love. Take care.